Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you. So, it has been long overdue on the channel, I think, that we come back to a Spright deck, because as much as I do love Math Mech, I still have a very special place in my heart for Little Boy Blue. Spright Blue is just one of my favorite cards, and Spright overall is one of my favorite archetypes. And speaking of blue, we are coming back to the Ritual variants, in particular, Gishki Spright is what we're going to be talking about today here. So this Spright variant is one that I've been meaning to come back to, because I haven't really covered it much since it came out. And when it came out, I was really up on this deck, right? I was calling it the best Spright variant. I thought it was going to be like a tier 2 deck for sure. But now that it's been, I think, a couple of months, maybe a month and a half since these cards have come out, we're kind of seeing that, honestly, more than anything else, there's just not a lot of people playing this deck. One person who is playing this deck, however, is one of our patrons, Snon, who is also on the coaching tier. So, because Snon is on the coaching tier, once a month we talk about decks, about plays, all that fun stuff. And we were talking about Gishki Spright, and he showed me his variant here with the Knightmare Corruptor Iblee. Now, you're probably thinking the same thing I do when you see Iblee in this deck. You're like, oh, it's just a cute floodgate to put on the end of our opponent's board, or to put on our opponent's board at the end of our plays. But that's actually not 100% true. Here, the Knightmare Corruptor Iblee in this deck actually acts as an extender. Of course, we are still going to be putting it on our opponent's board and link locking them, but more than that, this card actually does function as an extender that helps us continue our plays, and I'll go ahead and show you how we're going to do that here in some of these games coming up. Actually, all the games you're going to see here were from Snon and I's coaching session. It's funny, it actually, in a lot of ways, felt like he was coaching me more than I was coaching him, because, again, he's a lot more familiar with this deck. I know he's pretty active on the Discord, so if you are interested in chatting a bit more about this deck, I would highly recommend that you click the description below and find the link to the Discord, and then you can join, and we can all chat about this deck, as well as any other Master Duel, or just any things in general you feel so inclined to. So yeah, as far as this build here, we're still doing a lot of the same stuff we were doing in like our initial build, but the combo lines are going to be very different. One thing we are kind of notably doing different as far as like the Gishki support goes is, I'm off of Photomirror and we're on the Nekromirror instead. The Photomirror is nice if you are in a situation where you want to summon the Neremanas but don't have any ritual fodder, but as a part of these combo lines we're going to show, we actually do factor that in. We're able to factor in the ritual fodder as part of our line. So we're not really going to be in these situations where we are without ritual fodder. Gee, say that 5 times fast, right? And then, yeah, on top of that, we're also not playing the Aquamirror illusion anymore. Although I will say that towards the end of our coaching session, Son and I were talking about Aquamirror illusion and how it could be potentially still pretty good, not only being able to set it off of the focused Aquamirror, but it's also a decent thrust option as well. Because the thing about the Aquamirror illusion that I didn't like about it when I was playing this deck initially, I just didn't like opening it. It's just an awful card to see in your opening hand. So this might be one of the situations where even I can admit where it's actually correct to go above 40 cards. I'm wondering if maybe we just don't add the Aquamirror illusion as a 41st card. I mean, I know the difference between drawing it between 40 and 41 is not great at all, but I mean, it is still lesser odds, so. Let's see. What else is going on with this build? Oh, you might notice in the extra deck we're rocking the Mannequin Cat. This will actually be a part of our main combo line, and so will the Bujinki Ahashima. I'm sure I butchered that pronunciation. Apologies if I did, but I managed to craft a royal copy of it, which is really cool. I don't get many good royals, and this is actually a pretty decent royal. And again, this looks kind of situational, but it will actually be part of some of our like more main, kind of more focused combo lines, right? So good stuff all around there. Oh, the other thing that this build is doing differently than I was before is we are going a little bit more into the Spright build, particularly the Spright engine, rather. We're playing an additional red or carrot, mostly to act as extenders, because a lot of the combos that I was focused on for the initial build was like a 1-card combo around Grimness, but if you have Grimness plus a Spright extender, it just so greatly expands what your combo lines are able to do. And not only that, but like with any Spright variant, and we're going to see, I think, multiple games that play out like this, the cool thing about this deck is, if your kind of combo line gets disrupted, it's so easy to just pivot into Spright plays. And again, that's why I love Spright variants in general, is because, like, for Spright decks, I've said this so many times when playing Spright, all you need to build any amount of a Spright board is a level 2 monster and literally any other monster. It doesn't even need to necessarily be another level 2 monster, because you can link your 2 and your non-2 into Elf. Elf brings back the 2. Elf and the 2 go into Gigantic. Gigantic for Blue. Blue for Jet. Jet for Starter. And you're just off to the races at that point, right? So, yeah, it's just a very, very cool thing that is not unique to this particular variant, but, again, just why I like Spright decks overall. I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover as far as the just talking about the deck overall goes. So, yeah, let's go ahead and break the list down card by card, and then we'll see some gameplay. So, we are on 2 Gishki Abyss, 3 Maxx, 2 Gishki Vision, 1, here it is, Knightmare Corruptor Iblee, 2 Spright Blue, 1 Spright Jet, 2 Spright Red, 2 Spright Carrot, 3 Gishki Grimness, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 2 Gishki Shadow, 2 Kashtira Fenrir, 2 Evigishki Neremanas, 1 Triple Tactics Talent, 2 Focalized Aquamirror, 1 Triple Tactics Thrust, 1 Gishki Aquamirror, 1 Gishki Nekromirror, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Spright Starter, 1 Spright Smashers, and then 3 Infinite Impermanence. That's going to be our 40 card main deck. For the extra deck, we are on 1 number 29 Mannequin Cat, 1 Onibimaru Soul Sweeper, 2 Gigantic Spright, 1 number 2 Ninja Shadow Mosquito, 1 Downerd Magician, 1 Divine Arsenal AA-ZEUS Sky Thunder, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Bujinki Ahashima, I think. Again, I'm sure I butchered that, sorry if I did. 2 Spright Elf, 1 Pitknight Earlee, 1... Oh, this is actually a difference between Snons and I's build just because I don't have the card. I have Knightmare Unicorn, but what I think is better... Oh, hang on. I think it's a Topologic monster. No! Hang on. Where is this card? Here it is. Snon actually has the Topologic Trisbania instead of Knightmare Unicorn, which... if I had this card, I would absolutely be playing it instead. I do think this is the better Link 3 option in this meta in particular, because the Knightmare Unicorn takes a discard and only spins back 1 card, whereas there are a lot of very relevant spell and trap cards, not just Labyrinth, but of course Pearly has their continuous spell and trap, Kashtira's got like Birth and their field spell, pretty much every deck, like of course Dragon Link also has their continuous and field spell. Like, the spell trap banishing is definitely something that can come up in a wide variety of matchups. So if I had this, I would be playing it over Knightmare Unicorn. Just wanted to throw that out there. And then the last 2 cards are, of course, going to be Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avermax, and then the Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. And that will do it for the list. Let's see those games now. Alright, so our first game that we're going to watch here is going to be up against Tearlament. And again, all of these games were played in my Patreon coaching session with Snon. So it's actually pretty cool that we get to see these play out here. So we're going to be taking the first turn. We have the Focalized Aquamirror plus the Extender, so we should be good to go for pretty much a full play here, right? Going to start by using the Aquamirror to grab the Grimness. Grimness is going to activate. Interesting decision point that I had here. So my opponent activates Tearlament Havness in response to the Gishki Grimness. Now, in the past against Tearlament, I've very often fired off the Maxx against the Havness, even on my turn 1. However, I elected not to do that here. The reason I'm not using the Maxx here is simply because the Tearlament deck is so much less likely nowadays to actually mill plays that I would rather have the Maxx going into my opponent's turn than take a chance, use it now, and maybe get multiple draws. Plus, like, we do also have, like, a fair bit of stuff in hand here. Like, I'm pretty confident even if they, like, made it kick close, right, we'd still be fine, so. And sure enough, Havness doesn't really mill anything relevant at all. Milling Ash Blossom, Triple Tech, and Scream. Scream will get a trap card search, but, like, that's fine. I don't care about that. They get Crime. Again, it's completely irrelevant, but Abyss is going to add the Vision. Now, I'm going to special summon the Spright Blue and add Red. Might look weird to add Red and not Jet, but we're going to actually access Jet later in our combo line. Excuse me. Now I'm going to link off the Blue and Abyss for the Elf. Elf is going to bring back that Abyss for the Gishki Shadow now. We get to use the Shadow. Oh, and it is also important that we linked off Abyss and Blue. We want to keep Grimness on the field, because Grimness is going to be our ritual fodder, because Grimness can act as an entire fodder for a ritual monster per its effect. So it's a lot of the reason why we want the extender there. But yes, now we get to go for the Neremanas. Neremanas effect will bring back that Grimness. Now we can special our red that we searched off the blue. Abyss and Grimness will now overlay for the Gigantic Spright. We get to use Gigantic Spright's effect, not to pull out Jet, but actually to pull out Iblee, and we're still going to access Spright Jet later. I'm now linking off the Iblee and the Knightmare Corrupt, or sorry, the Iblee and the Spright Red for that Bujinki monster, Bujinki Ahashima. Ahashima. Again, I'm sure I'm butchering that, and apologies if I am, but alright, gonna get the Carrot out of the hand as well as the red out of the graveyard, and then we can overlay those two for the number 29 Mannequin Cat. Now the Iblee will go on. Oh, and also I want to note something here too that is actually important. The Iblee needs to be Chainlink 1, because if the Iblee is Chainlink 2, then it'll hit the field before the Mannequin Cat will see it hit the field. But because we did it in the other way, because Iblee was Chainlink 1 here, Mannequin Cat was summoned on Chainlink 2 as part of the Bujin's effect, then Iblee hit the board, so Mannequin Cat was able to see Iblee hit the board. And now we can pull out Spright Jet, and that's how we get Spright Jet. So now we can Jet for starter. Gonna link off the Jet and the Gigantic in order to summon our IP Masquerena, of course. Unfortunately, we can't use the Bujin as a link material, like, period, so can't go into Pitknight Earlee here, but that's fine. Oh, and then as a bonus, we get to reset up the Aquamirror. We could have set up Illusion, too, if we had it in our deck, but that's fine. I'm going to Maxi during the draw phase here. Opponent is going to start by linking off the Iblee and the Havness for Dark the Dark Charmer Gloomy. Dark will activate its effect to target my Gigantic. I'm actually going to use the Neremanas here, and not the red, because if I destroy the Dark, then it'll get to search. So I want to shuffle it back into the deck. This will also free up a zone for the Elf to bring back Iblee. And the reason I'm bringing back Iblee is there is a world where I can go for Underworld Goddess using IP and Iblee, and then that will actually put the Iblee back onto my opponent's field. So, but we don't need to do that here, because we have far more than enough disruption. Oh, and also the Gamma Seal IP, that's the other main reason we didn't do that here. Honestly, if they hadn't Gamma Sealed there, I might have actually considered it, but looks like they're going to try to out our board with Knight, but we still have multiple monster effect negates. I'm going to go ahead and use the red to sack off the Bujin to both negate and destroy the Knight. This will prevent them from battling and then trying to go into a Zeus later as well. They're going to normal summon Rhinoheart. I've got the Imperm to negate that. And at this point, they just concede. Because here's the thing, right? Even if they did continue to have more things to play, like after this Rhinoheart got negated, that would still be more draws into my Maxx, and the more disruption they get hit with, the less likely they are going to be able to actually not only build a board, period, but also like build a board that can even push through my board to try to win this turn. And I have so many draws off of Maxx that if they don't win this turn, there's like no way I don't have an amazing follow-up play, right? So cool, good stuff. That is our first duel. The first one I wanted to show off because I feel like it best shows off what the Gishki Spright turn 1 lines can look like with the Bujin, with the Iblee, and all that fun stuff. A lot of people are probably like, oh, you're just playing the Bujin and Iblee because you have Royals. No, no, no. They're actually good and optimal to play in this deck. Let's go and see the next game here. All right, Kashtira is going to be our next opponent. Specifically, it looks like they were on a bit of a Synchro package, but only a bit of one. It was still mostly a dedicated Kashtira deck, so this time we're going to be going second, opening Ashen Imperm. Definitely love to see those going second. Opponent is going to start with a Kashtira Birth and summon the Scareclaw, I believe. Yes. Have to get in attack mode because they are normal summoning it. And they wanted to do so for the Theosis, but thankfully we have the Ash Blossom here, so no Theosis, no follow-up, no plays for the opponent. Not that we feel particularly sorry for Kashtira, right? So I get to special my Fenrir, my own Kashtira here, starting our plays off. Opponent is going to Droll as a follow-up. Droll and Lockbird can be very devastating to this deck, because we do a lot of searching, a lot more than a normal Spright deck does, right? A normal Spright deck would only have the blue and jet that search, but here, of course, we have not only the Gishki Abyss, but also the Vision and the Shadow and all that fun stuff. But again, we're still able to make very, very good plays here. Now here I'm going to go for the Gigantic and go for a Carrot since I already have the Imperm. But one thing Snon actually pointed out that I could have done here, because again, these games were during our Patreon coaching session, he pointed out that I could have actually summoned Iblee and then Iblee locked my opponent. Because Kashtira in particular plays plays almost nothing they can go into with Iblee. Because here's the thing, right? If Iblee is on the field and they can't special their cash monsters, and they're not able to even summon a Late 2 because they aren't able to summon anything. In fact, I've actually seen some Kashtira extra decks specifically play Linkuriboh in case they get Ibleed. But even if they link it off for Linkuriboh, they still can't special their Kashtira monsters. But here it's not really going to matter because we've got Imperm and Carrot anyway. And like, yeah, we have the Imperm for the Fenrir. The Kaiju is irrelevant. One thing that actually makes Spright variants, not just this deck, but Spright variants in general, pretty well poised into this meta. It's a relatively minor point, to be fair, but a lot of people are on Kaijus right now for Pearly and also Kashtira to get rid of like a Rise Heart or Era or something. And Kaijus are notably awful against Spright decks, just terrible, because we don't end on one big monster. We end on like literally a full board, and it's like a Kaiju doesn't really do much in the wake of that, except get rid of like IP. But you know, we still have plays. So that actually happened in our last duel. Our IP got Kaiju'd, and it was completely irrelevant. We still had far more than enough plays. So yeah, a lot of Kaijus in this meta, and that does make Spright at least somewhat well poised in that regard. But let's go and see our next duel here. All right, for this game, we're going to be against Adventure Synchron. Thought about building a Synchron deck a couple of times myself, but I wouldn't need that many URs. I just would need to learn the it's more of a time investment than a material investment, really. But so this hand, it's a little unfortunate. We didn't open the ability to go into like our ritual plays, but we're still going to access some of our Gishki line here. Because as we go into the Gigantic, right, even though we are 2-locked and can't really ritual summon at all as a result, we can still Gigantic for Grimness, and Grimness will still pull out the Abyss for an extra body, and the Abyss will add more follow-up stuff to our hand, right? Not only can we add the Vision, but as we're going to link off for the Elf, we can Elf to bring back Abyss yet again. And then the second Abyss Search, because remember, this card is not once per turn for some reason, because it was made in 2014, we get to bring the Grimness to our hand as well. So yeah, we don't get to do any ritual summoning this turn, but again, we still get to fully set up our hand for the follow-up play. And you know, as a consolation play, I don't think Elf, IP, Red, Smashers is that bad of an inboard at all. So I'm going to Elf to bring back the Grimness here to try to get even more bodies and searches, but opponent's going to call by the Grimness. It's a little bit rough. It means we can't Grimness during the next turn either, but that shouldn't matter too much. It does make my Spright Red worse here, though, and as a result, I'm going to use the Smashers now. This looks weird, but what I'm going to do is actually use Smashers on Red and Fateful Adventure. The reason that I'm doing this, because you might be thinking, well, Hex, now you've used up your Red, there goes your Monster Negate. Maybe you could have saved the Smashers for afterward and then gotten both effects. But here's the issue with that, right? If I try to use Spright Red's effect, I'm going to have to use either Elf or IP to sack them, to sack off as a material, right? And then if I try to Smashers after that, well, then my IP is just pointless, because I won't have any more bodies left to actually summon an Max or whatever body. That's why it was a little bit of a bummer that the Elf didn't get to bring back the Grimness, because then Grimness would have specialed Abyss from deck. We would have not only gotten another search, but there's our body to sack off for Red, and there's another body to sack off for Smashers. So here, what I'm thinking is, I really don't want my opponent to establish the adventure engine. Namely, I really don't want to have to deal with the Griffin's Omni Negate, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to use Smashers, get rid of the Red, get rid of the Fateful Adventure. Now I don't have to worry about the adventure line, and I can still IP an Elf into Max if I need to. So opponent is going to Shiren. That is a very easy Ash Blossom negate for me. I thought they were on tier limits actually at this point. I was like, adventure tier? I guess it's not the most outlandish thing in the world, but Yeah, they're just going to normal summon the Shyren and threaten to go to battle phase here. That's why I'm using the IP to go into the Avermax. And yeah, I think that's going to be it for my opponent's plays for that turn. So good stuff. Again, very small, relatively small, end of board. But, oh, here that was just a misplay on my part. I totally forgot that the Grimness was negated. But that's fine. It's actually kind of debatable if the Grimness was even good to resolve here, because then only ritual monsters would have been able to attack. Like, I would have gotten more advantage, but the line that I'm actually going to do here as a result of the Grimness not being able to activate and thus allowing my monsters to attack is actually going to be able to find me lethal here. As you can see, because the thing that I didn't factor in that I failed to remember was the Neremanas bringing back the other water monster. Because I was kind of thinking at first, like, oh, I'm only going to have Avermax and Neremanas, and that's not no TK anyway, but yeah, again, I just completely forgot that Neremanas was going to bring back a monster. And the funny thing is here, too, actually, at this point during the duel, I had, like, literally 5 seconds left on the clock, but I think I could have made it. Because Elf, or Gigantic would have just brought out, like, literally any Spright monster at that point. And then that's 9,200 plus... What's the strongest Spright monster I can pull from deck? I think it's blue at this point for 1,100. 9,200, 9,300 minus... What am I going to have on board again? I'm just trying to do some math here. Oh, I think that actually wouldn't have been lethal. Well, whatever, it's fine. It's still... I mean, it's effectively still lethal. Our opponent surrendered, which made it lethal. So, alright, we have one more duel to take a look at. Let's go ahead and go straight into that. And our final opponent is going to be on Dinomorphia. They are rocking some new cards in it. They are rocking the Wannabes as some tech options. Wannabe being a pretty good trap card for just about any deck that plays normal trap cards. Wait, a pretty good monster. Did I say a pretty good trap card? Wannabe is a monster, but it supports trap cards. So here we are going to get Maxx. But thankfully we already have the Gishki Vision in hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Abyss to grab Shadow, and then I'm going to use Shadow's effect and Vision to grab the Ritual, Spell, and Monster respectively. Basically because my opponent Maxx'd me, I'm just going to end on pretty much Neremanas and not much else. Not ideal, but, you know, it happens. The Earth Insect is ever a factor in Master Duel. I'm not going to be proccing Neremanas' effect to revive here. I'll just give my opponent one extra draw to establish a body/negate. And speaking of Earth Insects, we do have one of our own here for our opponent. They will have the Imperm for the Neremanas. It's a little bit unfortunate, but not the end of the world. Looks like the Triz... Wait, what is this card called? Not Trizbania. Theriza, that's what it is. Theriza is going to set up the Fusion Trap card. They got a couple more back rows before passing back over to us. Maxx, yet again, getting hit with the Maxx. I will negate this one, though, with the Neremanas F. Poda is going to Chain Soul the Supreme King to bring out Zark. That's fine. It's actually not going to be fine, but we'll see later. You'll see. So yeah, Neremanas negates the Maxx. And here I'm going to start by normal summoning Abyss, actually. I don't want to summon Grimness, because I am actually thinking about trying to end the duel on this turn. Frenzy activates here. We always knew that was going to be a thing. Frenzy, I imagine, for the Kent Regina, and then Kent Regina copy Frenzy to go for the Rex turn. But we actually have options against this Rex turn here. Notably, I can add the Gishki Shadow, which will allow me to pitch for the Nekromirror. And my plan right now is to use the Nekromirror to sack off my opponent's Rex turn, right? Then I can summon Neremanas and battle into their Trizbania for lethal. I'll even throw out the Carrot, even though that doesn't do anything here. But it's Dinomorphia Sonic! Because it is the counter trap, I am not able to stop that, and they are able to keep their Rex turn in play. It also gets rid of their or Thesaria, rather, which was an attack mode, which makes it a little bit more difficult for me to find lethal. But I do actually have potentially another way to find lethal here. Well, I did until my opponent actually activated the second effect of Soul Supreme King. Have any of you ever seen a Dinomorphia deck actually use this effect of this card? I didn't before today, but Soul of the Supreme King is going to pull out Brave Eyes Pendulum Dragon, as well as the Crystal Clear Wing Synchro. The Crystal Clearing Synchro has Spell Trap card negation. And the Brave Eyes, we'll see in a moment here. But I was thinking about this and I was like, wait a second. I can actually go for Shadow Mosquito here. Because at first I thought, oh no, the Shadow Mosquito gets negated by the Rex term. But then I realized, wait a second. Your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters they control that have attack greater than or equal to your life points. Now, although Dinomorphia does like to go pretty low in life points, they do generally stay, you know, above 0. So, that means my Mosquito can't get negated here. Which is pretty cool. So I'm going to try to use the Mosquito. But unfortunately for me, this Brave Eyes Pendulum Dragon ended up mattering a lot more than I thought. Because of one little line right here in the middle, sandwiched in, negate the activated effects of monsters with 0 attack. So, it's a little bit sad, but if my opponent didn't have exactly Dinomorphia Sonic and a Brave Eyes Pendulum Dragon and access to both cards, I think there were 2 different times I could have won this duel. Like, this was so close to actually being a W, but due to 2 relatively narrow windows, unfortunately, the opponent is going to be able to get it out here. They are going to style on me a little bit here, but they actually end up going for the number S39 here, like Utopia Prime. Which, if nothing else, at least we get to see a monster with 2,510 printed attack points, which is kind of neat. Oh, Dinomorphia. Always with their weird life point numbers. But, yeah, as you can see, that was a very close duel. Even though we did end up losing, it was because our opponent had 2 very narrow outs that they were able to stop us from winning a couple of different times over. So, that'll go ahead and do it for these games. Huge shout out to Snon. Who has revitalized my interest in Gishki Spright. I really think people are just sleeping on this deck. Like, I think this deck is good, like, really good. It's just that nobody is playing it, is, like, why you don't see people talking about it. But, anyway, that'll go ahead and do it for this video, so let's move now to our outro. Alright everybody, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you for watching it all the way to the very end. That means a whole lot to me, and it's also a fantastic way to support the channel. And if you're interested in supporting the channel in other ways besides YouTube, there are plenty of ways to do that. If you check out the description below, you'll find a bunch of links down there. One of them goes to my Patreon. You're actually seeing the names of everyone subscribed to the Patreon on the screen right now. So if you're interested in getting your name in the credits here at the end, if you want to see more daily Master Duel content, or if you're interested in one-on-one private coaching sessions, I offer all of that on Patreon. I also stream live on Twitch. Feel free to go ahead and click that link and follow and or subscribe there. I also have the Discord community, if you want to follow that link, where hundreds of duelists have already signed up. Free to join, and you can just come hang out, talk about the game, and chill in general. Final link that's going to be in the description is my Twitter. You can follow that if you want some more notifications of what's happening with the channel. So, all in all, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.